Hello, my name's Maria Gloag and I'm one of the clinical nurse specialists in the pain clinic. I've been working with pain for about 10 years and I have a master's in medical science from the University of Sheffield. The session that I'm going to do now is talking about pacing, which is one of the essential components of pain management. Before watching this session, it's really important that you've completed the pacing exercise in the booklet that you will have been given at your first nurse appointment. If you don't have a copy of the booklet, you can download the pacing exercise. There's also a completed copy of the pacing exercise to help you get some ideas of what you should be filling in. So this session will introduce the concept of pacing, which is a really important part of our pain management toolkit. One way to think about pain is as a jigsaw. We know that pain is very different for each person, so each picture will be different. And pain management is about putting together the different parts of the jigsaw. So for some people, pacing will be a really important part of their jigsaw and will contribute to their pain management in quite a big way. For other people, it may be less important and other strategies would be more useful. The hope of these sessions is that if we can introduce lots of different strategies, you'll be able to choose which ones work for you and put them together as part of your jigsaw. So what we're trying to do from this session is gain an understanding of how to incorporate pacing into daily life, which we also like to refer to as pacing in the real world, to also identify and overcome some potential barriers to pacing, and to undertake a short pacing exercise. So what we're aiming for with pacing is a fairly even level of activity throughout the day or the week. It's really important to try and pause and change position before the pain starts to build up. As Andy mentioned, central sensitization is a really important part of chronic pain, and what we're trying to do is avoid reinforcing those pain pathways. So if we wait until the pain is severe before we move or change our position, we've already activated those pain pathways. The idea with pacing is that we move or change position before those pain pathways start activating, and gradually over time our sensitization reduces and our bodies and brains become less used to moving in a pain direction. We will show you how to use the pacing tool to work out your baseline activity times and the length of the pauses, because this is very individual for each person. It's really important when you first start not to try to pace everything. Start with an easy target, something that's easy to time and easy to control, and aim for a gradual increase in your activity levels. So why do we look at pacing to manage pain? If you look at the cycle on your screen here, this is what we call our boom and bust cycle, and it's familiar to most of us. We start with having a good day, and we try and do all the things that we haven't been able to do because our pain has been too bad. We can sometimes be tempted to overdo it, which can actually cause our pain to increase. We then need to take a rest period in order to recover, and then we go back after some time of recovery to have another good day, and the cycle perpetuates it. Unfortunately, over time, this tends to lead to what we call a deconditioning cycle, and you can see a picture of it here. I'm going to draw one here for you. So here is our activity levels. And here is time. So as we've said, we start off with an activity level here. We have a good day, so we try and do a lot, but then we need to have a rest period in order to recover. And then over time, our activity levels get lower, the rest periods gets longer, and the dip in between good days gets lower. And what we're trying to do is reverse that cycle and recondition ourselves so that we can gradually increase the amount we can do without causing our pain to flare. So, why can pacing be challenging? We appreciate that we're operating in the real world. It can sometimes be difficult to change a behaviour pattern, even if we think it may be helpful to do so. We're also conditioned to finish jobs that we've started, to carry on pushing through the pain until we've completed our task. And also, at first, when we first start to pace and we're learning the technique, activities can take longer, which can be very, very frustrating, especially with our busy lives these days. And we can sometimes put pressure on ourselves and have unrealistic expectations of what we should be doing and what we should be achieving. But what are the drawbacks of remaining in this boom and bust cycle, this gradual deconditioning process? Sometimes planning ahead can seem very difficult because we don't know how our pain will be from day to day. Patients often say to me that they feel as though their pain is dictating what they can do rather than them. We may find that there's an increase in pain flares, which are times when our pain gets dramatically worse for a period of time. And what we see, as we've mentioned, is this gradual deconditioning cycle where over time we're able to do less and less and need longer and longer rest periods. Also, patients have said that they find it very frustrating and has a negative impact on their mood when they're in this bust part of the cycle, when they feel as though they have to rest, they're completely overwhelmed by their pain and they're not able to undertake the activities that they would like to. Now we're going to talk through the pacing exercise. So you'll need a copy of your pacing exercise sheet. There's also a completed copy to give you some ideas of the sort of thing we're looking for. Try and complete at least one work-based or essential activity. For example, shopping, ironing, sitting at a computer, driving, that kind of thing. But also make sure that you complete one fun or leisure activity, because we do know that it's really important to have a good balance between essential activities and fun activities. And we often find that when people are in the bust part of the cycle or when they're finding things difficult, it's often the fun and interesting things that are the first to be lost. Try and pick a task which is easy to measure for your first attempt, because it's very frustrating to try and find something that's very difficult to pace. So have a look at the completed sheet for some ideas. So, step 1 is to choose a task. In this case, we've chosen driving to work. Then we think about what will happen if we try and do this task for too long. How will it impact on us? What kind of things will we experience? In this case, the person has said that they can drive for about 20 minutes before their pain starts to get worse. If they have to drive for longer than 20 minutes, for example, if there's traffic, they get very stiff when they get out of the car, which can make it hard for them to concentrate when they get to work. Then step 3 is to make a pacing plan. Think about how long you should do the task for and how long you should pause for. Try and find a cycle of activity and rest that you can work into a rhythm. So in the example that we've chosen, the person has said that they could actually stop halfway to their destination and get out and walk around the car or do a few stretches. This would mean leaving slightly earlier in the morning, but hopefully this would be compensated for by them being able to concentrate and work better once they get to work. And step 4, how will you review your progress? How do you know if the pacing is being effective or not? This person has decided to keep a pain diary, which can be a really useful way of tracking your pain levels. So, pause the video now and have a think about 2 activities that you could try pacing. Think about how you'll choose those activities, how you're going to break them up, and how you're going to review your progress. So in summary, pacing is about doing more, not doing less, although it can be frustrating when you first start to do it. Try starting with the activities that are easier to pace, usually ones which are easier to break up and measure. Try and work on changing your position regularly. We know that the longer we stay in one position, the more likely our muscles are to tense up and the more likely those pain pathways are to become activated and to continue firing. Try and work out a realistic and gradual build-up rate, and do try to stick to this. Consistency is really important. Write down your pacing plan and try and document your progress. It can be very encouraging as you see your time starting to increase and things starting to improve. You may find an activity diary helpful. There's a good one on the Arthritis Research UK website, and you can find a link for that here. And finally, please do remember to bring your pacing activity diary and your pacing exercise to clinic with you when you have your nurse review, so that we can go through it and see the progress that you've been making.